Hey, Jeweler's Life, welcome back. I know it's been a little while. Life's been going on, had a baby, Christmas was crazy, had to take some time off, and also, you know, we don't just shoot any content, we shoot content that's amazing. And so today, of course, I've got a special surprise for you guys as always. So today, we're going to be talking about the Audemars Piguet. So today we're going to be talking about the AP Royal Oak 15500 ST. I nicknamed it Big Blue because of the dial. You can see it right there. It's a beautiful, beautiful watch. I absolutely love it. Let's pull it out of its box because it really is meant to be worn and enjoyed every single day. So the 15500 ST Blue Dial right now is one of the hottest watches in the market. I can tell you because I sourced this for a client, it took me forever to get even a decent deal. And when I say a decent deal, I mean $43,000 compared to its retail price of $19,200. Now, don't get me wrong, 43 is a pretty good deal because this puppy has been reselling anywhere from 45 to 55. So as always, I try to look out for my clients, and in this case, we did. So the AP 15500 ST Royal Oak, it is 41 millimeters. Although it wears a lot bigger than that. I can tell you I've tried it on, worn it around a little bit. I've also got a jumbo, a 15202 BC, and this wears way bigger. This, although being 41, probably wears more like a 43 or even a 44. Not as big as a Panerai or the dreaded Invicta, but it definitely wears pretty big for its size. So this 15500 ST comes with a 10.5 thickness, which isn't too bad considering everything that's going on, especially with that clear back where you can see the movement and all its functions. One of my most favorite things about this watch is the dial. So the dial is a blue galvanized dial with a tapisserie, grand tapisserie pattern, which is really cool. I love it. It reminds me kind of some of the waffle dials and the Panerais, and I know it's an AP, I shouldn't be comparing it to a Panerai, but still, that's what it reminds me of. So one of the things that we all love about AP and is its namesake is the bracelet. The bracelet is probably the most beautiful watch bracelet that exists in the luxury market, and it's also the most pain in the butt to polish. I can tell you I've polished a few of these and no thank you. I'm doing that once, I'm not doing it more than once. So actually to polish this entire bracelet takes about 11 hours. And so each link is made of 3 different parts, and yes, it has to be completely taken apart to polish the links. And then remember, apart from that satin, that beautiful satin finish, you have those high polished beveled areas that need to come out perfect for it to give it that namesake contrast that we can all see from across the room. Now, something that I really love about this watch that I wish Patek would do is that in order to remove the links, they have your traditional screws that you can screw out, and don't get me wrong, it's got a pin on the other side that you have to push out, but I love this because trust me, on some of my Nautiluses, I've had to push those pins out and pull them out, and it is such a pain in the butt, honestly. Let's talk about the clasp. So the clasp on this AP is really nice. It's nice and hefty. It's got a good feel to it. Again, not throwing shots at Patek, but sometimes I feel like their clasps can be a little flimsy. AP does a really good job of that, of making it nice and hefty, and it's something that gives really good balance to both the top and the bottom of the watch while you're wearing it on your wrist. So it comes with the screw down crown, which is really nice. That's what contributes to its 50 meter water depth rating. Really wouldn't recommend maybe more than just some surface swimming with this watch. And if you're wearing a $50,000 watch in the pool, kudos to you. You got bigger ones than I do because I would not jump in the pool with this. All right, and this Big Blue, as I like to call it, comes with the caliber 4302 movement, which honestly is absolutely beautiful. This see-through case back where you can see that 22 karat rotor which not that it's needed, but it's just really cool to have a 22 karat gold rotor just moving around in there and to be able to see all the components. I always criticize Rolex for not doing that, although with some of their new Daytonas and some of their newer models, they've done that. But I'm very glad that AP has always stuck with that, or has stuck with that for a long time now, and that they continue to do so, because you are paying big bucks for what's inside of that watch, and it's nice to be able to see it. So the caliber 4302 movement comes with a 70-hour power reserve, which is an upgrade from the previous 60 hours. So we get an extra 10 hours without having to wind it again. And it does have 32 joules and 257 parts. I've seen some of the watchmakers that work on this, and honestly, you guys are geniuses. A lot of you guys, I feel like, have those 257 parts memorized, and obviously it has its basic anatomy and functions, but still, if you have 257 parts laid out in front of a table, super tiny parts at that, it's pretty impressive. Now let's talk about the history on the Royal Oak, because we all know when we see this across the room, we know what it is. We know it's an AP, we know it's a Royal Oak, and it's as good as having a red Ferrari driving by because it's that noticeable. So Gerald Genta designed the Royal Oak in 1971, and it was presented in Baselworld in 1972. The original reference number was 5402ST, obviously the ST for stainless, and you can imagine, if you know anything about Gerald Genta, you know that he has a love affair with water vessels when it comes to his watch designs and how influential water vessels have been over time, especially naval vessels. So the Royal Oak was based on the HMS Royal Oak battleship of the Royal Navy of England, and obviously that's where it gets its name from as well. And the bezels themselves, there are a few theories out there. Some say that it was based on divers' helmets back in the day. Others also say that the portholes on that specific ship look just like this bezel. And you guessed it, the name Royal Oak comes from ships that were made by oak trees. So when AP released this watch, it was them stepping out on a limb, because up until that point, they had only designed small, complicated gold dress watches for men, and this was anything but any of that. So the Royal Oak was designed as a sports watch, which I know what you're thinking, not super sporty, although compared to the dressy men's watches that AP was making, this is definitely a step into that sports section. What Gerald Genta did was to give the Royal Oak durability, but still make it as thin as possible, is essentially he sandwiched the case back and the bezel together with the case in the middle, which if you've ever seen one of these taken apart, once you unscrew those screws in the bezel comes completely out, the dial is still there, and then the back of the watch also completely comes out. So the back screws and the front screws are connected in kind of like a tube-like structure. And so like I said, when Royal Oak came out in 1972, it was a huge failure. One, because although this one is a 41 millimeter, back then, the 39 millimeter Royal Oak was the first one to come out, and 39 millimeters at the time was super big. It was bigger than any men's watch that was out there, and men just weren't comfortable wearing something that big. And not just that, but the price was another distinguishing factor, where this watch was stainless steel, but cost as much, if not more, than a lot of other gold watches. And till this day, that still holds true. This costs a lot more than a lot of gold watches. So while the original movement, the 5402 ST, came out in 1972, there have been about 3 different reference numbers that have changed over the years, with this 15500 ST being the most recent. It came out in 2019. Again, it was made a little bit bigger, so it's 41 millimeter. It had a longer power reserve from going from 60 to 70. What's also pretty cool about the movement is that the movement actually, even though it's a very low hertz movement for all the complications that it has, they were able to increase the beats per hour. So essentially just making it a much more efficient movement overall. They also made this movement, the 4302 movement, a little bit wider at 32 millimeters versus 28 millimeters with the previous one, just so that it was well more balanced on your wrist compared to the 28 millimeter. And again, it's got that cool 22 karat rotor. Why? Just because I don't think that there is anything super efficient about having a 22 karat rotor, but it does look pretty cool that it has that flash of gold when you see through the case back. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a review on the 15500 ST AP. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We've got a lot more. We're going to review one of the new Daytonas. We're going to talk about breaking myths within the jewelry industry. For now, a jeweler's life out.